Broadcasting to you on WNN 1470 AM and TrentoVision.tv from the world's leading think tank laboratory, buried deep in an undisclosed building in hostile territory where evil and corruption is exposed. You're about to enter the Tom Trento Show.
Arrow border, all hands back in battle station.
Tom Trento heads United West, a group that says it defends Western civilization against the onslaught of Islam.
Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to 5 o'clock on WNN 1470 AM. We are TrentoVision TV, broadcasting out of Boca Raton, Florida, all the way from Miami to Orlando. You can listen to us on iHeartRadio if you download the app for your smartphone or other smart device. You can watch our fabulous show on TrentoVision.tv or the TeaPartyCommunity.com or Bare Naked Islam. And if you're listening to us while you're driving home from work this afternoon at 5 o'clock, you can always go back to the archives and see what you missed. Just go to youtube.com/TheUnitedWest and you can click on any show that you want. We've done over 500 TrentoVision shows so far, and most of them have featured Tom Trento himself. But Tom is in Israel right now with our director and technical advisor, J. Mark Campbell. They're on a national security fact-finding mission somewhere on a dangerous border with Israel right now.
I heard he's on the southern border now.
The southern border. That's Schmucky Putznick listening with us in the studio today. Also, in the studio today, we have a special guest co-host sitting in for Tom Trento today. We have Alan Bergstein. Anybody who lives in South Florida knows this man. He is a tireless, fearless activist.
Old.
Zionist.
No, activist, Zionist. I was going to say cow chip disturber. Can I say that?
No.
Yeah, I could say cow chip.
Yeah,
no?
okay.
Yeah,
Okay,
cow
yeah,
chip.
yeah.
Chip disturber. And he does an excellent job at it. And I'm really glad that you're here
No,
with us
I'm
today.
proud to be here today with a great group of people. I know the guests whom you've had, and it's my privilege and honor to be among you guys.
Awesome, awesome. Just for that, we're going to feed him after the show.
Why not now?
Why not now? You can't eat on the air. You can drink, though.
I won't make noise.
You can drink, though. Also today, which is, is it Wednesday already? October 9th, 2013. We have a really, really special guest who's going to be Skyping in just a minute or so. Ryan Mauro from the Clarion Fund.
Clarion Group,
pardon me. And he is an investigative reporter. How do you even describe what Ryan does?
He's pretty much unbelievable. He's an investigative journalist. He focuses on national security, international. He's just, and he's well beyond his years.
Well,
it's ridiculous.
Well, I know.
It's ridiculous.
I know.
He's
he's a wonderkind. He's a wonderkind, and just recently published a 37-page interview with a senior official from Homeland Security, or should I say the United States Department of Homeland Insecurity, and he's going to be talking about that with us today, and then also maybe if there's time, we'll bring it down to the local level and talk about some campus insecurity. At the local level, and that's something that Alan here has been very active in as well. So, do we have Ryan ready to go? No, we're good. You're going to let me talk some more? Okay. Also in the studio today, we have our intrepid and tireless and fearless producer, Damon Rosen.
Howdy.
Howdy. And also with Damon today, do we have Imam Abdullah?
I am here as usual. Yes.
Oh, he doesn't sound so
Is
enthusiastic.
that the guy in the robe?
Imam Abdullah, I fool you, you fools.
I am here as normal.
He's not looking forward to this show today because Ryan is going to be on and exposing the Muslim Brotherhood connection in our national security service.
I was very surprised and upset to find out who your guest was today. And your co-host.
You're not liking that. You're not liking that.
Not very much today.
Also, if we get a chance, I want to hear from our reporter on the ground, Shmucky Putznick from Kings Point, Delray, who had an interesting little excursion.
I tried to go see Reza Aslan talk last night, and they wouldn't let me in the temple.
Oh no, you got bounced out of
They
shul.
said private event. You out of here.
Okay. Maybe we'll get a chance to hear a little bit more of that. And but first, also we have Invisible Mike, who's going to be invisible and quiet and working today, right?
I guess I am now, yeah.
Okay, you guess you are now? No, but you're welcome to join in and talk anytime you want. I told everybody last week that you weren't here because we gave you an assignment to sign up on the Obamacare exchange, and you still haven't been able to do that. So
Is he still on the phone?
Mike hasn't slept for, gosh, I don't know, 6-7 days now trying to sign up for Obamacare.
He's the only one working on that thing. right?
Yeah. That's how to employ the youth, is just, pay them to sign up for Obamacare, and then you'll have full employment, right? All right. So without further ado, here we have Ryan Mauro from the Clarion Group. And he's not wearing his lucky orange shirt today, but he looks excellent in gray, and he's wearing a tie. How you doing, Ryan?
I'm doing well. Sorry to disappoint you with how I'm dressed.
We're always happy to have you on the show. It doesn't matter what you wear as long as you're wearing something.
I'll remember that for next time.
Okay, thanks. So I'm looking over this essay here, Disturbing Facts About a Senior Homeland Security Advisor. Can you tell us a little bit about how what it is that you do and how you got involved with this project?
Sure. I'm the National Security Analyst for Clarion Project, whose website is clarionproject.org. And we do a lot of investigation on what the Islamists are up to here in the United States and around the world. And there's a senior Department of Homeland Security advisor named Mohammed El-Obiari who's been criticized in the past. And I reached out to him for an interview, and he graciously granted it to me. And so over months and months now, since I think May, he's been talking to me frequently. And so I put together this interview, and I published it with notes on the side to give it proper context and proper clarification. And we did that with the Center for Security Policy, and now it's going all around the internet. And to really sum up things, over at clarionproject.org, I wrote this article, 15 Disturbing Facts About Senior Homeland Security Advisor, which you can read now, because I know most people don't have time to read a 37-page document.
Right, my goodness. It's amazing to me that he felt so comfortable to be so open with you when you see some of the things that he said, that he's so just right out front with you about who he is and what he believes in. He doesn't even try to cover it up, it doesn't seem like.
Right, he's very comfortable in his own skin. He genuinely doesn't see any problem with the positions that he takes. He genuinely believes that when people see his responses to my questions and our research, that they will take his side. And he knows I'm not anti-Muslim and that I don't make things up, and so he was comfortable with it, even if he and I disagree on the issue of the Muslim Brotherhood.
Right.
Ryan, can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Who vetted this individual, and who appoints individuals to work on Homeland Security? Napolitano is no longer in charge there now. I think there's a vacancy. So who vetted this guy? If you found out these facts about his feelings about the Muslim Brotherhood, who appointed him?
Well, that would be the Secretary of the Department of Homeland Security, which would be Janet Napolitano, but his career has a bipartisan streak. I think it's important to point out that he has been a Republican Party official in Texas for a long time, and that he was a delegate for John McCain in 2008.
I guess the John
But
McCain
his
part shouldn't surprise
But his
us.
background is a nefarious one, because we are fighting the Muslim Brotherhood. They're killing our people overseas. And my concern is, why does he still have his job after your interview came out and the public is aware of his background?
Well, let's talk a little bit about what his background is in terms of what are his views, these 15 points. Maybe, Ryan, if you could, maybe we can go over what are these ties to the Muslim Brotherhood that he has.
Well, we can luckily just go by his own words. You don't have to do a whole lot of research, but we can go through these 15 points if we have time.
Yeah.
The first one, and this is really pretty smoking gun, he wrote in 2007 that he knows the Muslim Brotherhood in a personal manner. So it doesn't get much more clear than that. He basically admits the fact that he has associations and close friendships with the group that is identified as the American Muslim Brotherhood in the United States. And he said because of that personal relationship, he should be a go-to person as an authority on the issue.
Okay. So the Muslim Brotherhood in the United States, this is a go-to guy.
That's what he says, and he refers to it as a social network.
A social network.
That's what the Muslim Brotherhood is. It's a social network.
Oh, it's just for friends to kind of get together.
Right, and what the point's trying to make is actually, to some degree, a valid one, where they don't always have membership cards. It's not like your standard political party. So when individuals like El Biari say that they're not a Muslim Brotherhood member,
right,
technically they're correct.
Right.
But the definition of a member by the Muslim Brotherhood's own definition is just someone who believes in the ideology and supports the cause.
Do you need a pinky ring?
No, I don't believe that you do.
But Ryan, excuse me, didn't James Clapper, the Director of National Intelligence, say that the Muslim Brotherhood is not a terrorist organization, but it's a secular group? And this is the fellow who runs our national intelligence, James Clapper.
Absolutely.
He did, and so the case of El Biari shows who's influencing the current administration and their policy, because James Clapper is not an expert on the Muslim Brotherhood. Where is he getting his insight from? Who's filtering the information that comes to his office to educate him?
Right, right. Well, that leads us to number 2 on the list. El Biari praises the Muslim Brotherhood and says the U.S. should support it. Well, right now the U.S. has been supporting it, haven't they?
Right, and so this interview helps explain why that's happening, and he uses language that's very similar to what James Clapper used. He says that the Muslim Brotherhood is pragmatic, non-violent, generally pluralistic, and he explicitly says that they're not dictatorial and that they're not even jihadist, even though their own internal documents talk about waging jihad.
Right, right. Just a socio-political movement.
Right, that isn't interested in jihad, not jihadist. He actually said that, so
No,
that was
no
really
jihad, no jihad, and no Sharia, right?
He didn't mention Sharia in his answer.
He never mentioned it. Which is the goal of jihad, isn't it?
Yes, to implement
By the way,
Sharia
in case-
law. And
Yeah, just so
there's
we're
another
clear.
point in there where he actually says that the U.S. should not resist the implementation of Sharia law in Muslim countries. That it doesn't threaten us.
It doesn't threaten us.
Yeah, I
Correct.
particularly like that.
It
one.
doesn't threaten the citizens of those other countries either, right?
He said it doesn't mean that planes are going to be flying into our buildings if we allow a country overseas to implement Sharia law. So he doesn't believe that it's worth resisting that.
It just tightens the noose. Another thing, Huma Abedin, who was the top assistant to Hillary Clinton as Secretary of State, and I'm sure she had access to the private files of the State Department. Huma Abedin herself was a member of the Muslim Brotherhood years back, together with her mother, who was a Muslim Brotherhood in Saudi Arabia, and her brother, who is a Muslim Brotherhood in England. So we have another...
And her deceased father.
I'm sorry?
And her deceased father.
And her deceased father, yeah, who was an American professor, by the way. But so we have Muslim Brotherhood all over this place, in Homeland Security, and the State Department, and James Clapper giving them open access. So your investigation is extremely important, and I think it should be front page headlines in the newspapers. Has it gotten so much publicity?
No, only the Daily Caller has covered it, and that's because, and this is the response I got back from media people. Everyone's focused on the government shutdown. They actually said, "Yes, Ryan, this is big news," but everyone's focused on the shutdown. There's only one crisis at a time, unless something really blows up.
Oh my goodness.
Literally blows up in this
Literally
case.
blows up in this case. Do you mind if we skip down to number 6 on your list here?
Sure.
Let's talk about Shukri Abu Baker.
Right.
Yeah.
He was a senior Muslim Brotherhood operative in the United States, an affiliate with Hamas. He's currently in jail because he led the Holy Land Foundation, which was set up by the Muslim Brotherhood, and he's in jail for financing Hamas. And what I was shocked to learn was that in 2007, El Biari said this publicly, by the way, that his life was basically changed when he met Shukri Abu Baker, the Hamas fundraiser, when he was 16 years old. And that Shukri Abu Baker came to him and told him about the plight of the Palestinians at the hands of the Israelis. And from that day on, El Biari donated $50 a month until it was closed, or at least donated something monthly until the foundation was closed by the U.S. government for financing Hamas. And he stands by this individual's innocence. He believes he's a great guy, even though he's an Islamist. And it's just amazing to see that you have a senior Department of Homeland Security advisor that's mentored by a Hamas fundraiser that's currently in jail. And this same fundraiser is also been recorded by the FBI saying that the primary tactic that the Muslim Brotherhood needs to use in America is deception.
Oh my gosh.
Well, deception is taqiyya.
Right.
You know, we all know about taqiyya. And Muslims practice taqiyya in order to fake out us Westerners and other religionists.
Right.
To believe that whatever they say is the truth. And we have to understand that taqiyya means deception.
Okay, but it seems to me, Ryan, correct me if I'm wrong, he's not even trying to deceive anybody. He's just telling everybody the plain truth, and he's so honest about it because he knows he's untouchable. Nothing's
Right.
going to happen to this guy. This is somebody who should also probably be in prison somewhere in the United States and having absolutely no influence on national security, and certainly not to the level of being an advisor to the President of the United States.
So basically, we have the wolf.
The wolf in wolf's clothing.
He's telling us how to secure ourselves from Muslim Brotherhood.
He's telling us that there is no threat from the Muslim Brotherhood. There's no reason for us to secure ourselves against them. And in fact, we ought to be assisting them in their political goals in other countries. Ryan, is that correct? Is that basically what
correct.
he's saying?
This
Yeah,
guy may not be
exactly what he's saying.
Ali Abari may not be a doctor, but he's an anesthetist to the United States. He anesthetizes us to the threats of Muslim Brotherhood.
But he does more than that, because men like Eli Biari and, I don't know, maybe Mr. Brennan over at the CIA, they don't just anesthetize us. They deliberately lie to us.
Well, the biggest problem I have, hi Ryan, it's Damon. The biggest problem I have is the influence that this guy has on setting the policy that is supposed to defend this country from these exact people. I mean, how are you letting a guy with these affiliations have influence on how to protect us from other jihadis?
This is the administration. This is what the administration has put into place.
Right.
They put into place our defense mechanism being basically infiltrated by the enemy.
Right.
There's no doubt about it.
Something down here just is catching my eye, I must say. Two items, actually. One is Eli Biari trying to leak to the media information that could have been damaging to Governor Rick Perry. So he's meddling in the political process. And then also, I think it's really important to talk a lot here about his hostility towards anti-Islamist Muslims. Now, especially on this show, we make the distinction between Islam and jihad and ordinary Muslims who have no interest in jihad or Sharia law, and they just want to be law-abiding American citizens or Egyptian citizens or Jordanians, and they do not want to live under the system of totalitarian Islam. That's probably the majority of Muslims in the world.
How do you know?
Certainly, I said probably the majority
don't
of
know.
Muslims in the world. Certainly in this country,
Yeah.
it's probably the majority. And I'm not saying that it takes a big minority to swing it the other way, because there is the minority is speaking for the majority, and this is extremely dangerous. It's very intimidating for ordinary Muslims to have the Muslim Brotherhood as your mouthpiece and spokesman. But he, Eli Biari, is actively hostile towards these ordinary Muslims and actively is trying to silence them here in the United States and make sure their voices aren't heard.
Exactly, and this shows why it's not a Muslim versus non-Muslim issue. Because in the interview, he really attacks anti-Islamist Muslims like Dr. Zuhdi Jasser or any of the other Muslims that oppose the Muslim Brotherhood, of which there are many, because he says that they're counterproductive for using the term Islamist, even though El Biari himself uses the term Islamist throughout the entire interview.
So how is he making the distinction then? And what is the threat to him of these anti-Islamist Muslims? And I'm using anti-Islamist Muslim because that's how you frame it. And
Right.
basically, I think the Clarion Project is pretty much big into that.
We are.
And reaching out to the Muslim community that is anti-Islamist.
Definitely, that is one of our objectives. And the reason he's threatened by it is because if he's in favor of the Muslim Brotherhood and a pro-Muslim Brotherhood policy, then the biggest threat to him is going to come from Muslims that can say this isn't a Muslim versus non-Muslim issue, that can come in and say there is an alternative. There is an alternative that is better for U.S. policy and is better morally. Let's just pretend that the Muslim Brotherhood did not threaten the United States.
Okay.
Still, even the fact that they're trying to implement Sharia law in places like Egypt and throughout the world, we should feel morally obliged to oppose that. Yet what
Right.
he's saying is, ignore it.
Nothing to see here. Alan, let me ask you. Let me bring you into this because you've seen a lot over the years. It seems to me that if you go back in U.S. history, for most of U.S. history and our engagement in international affairs, we were coming from a position, like a moral position. We weren't looking to build an empire outside of our borders necessarily. We were looking to improve the lives of people around the world. And basically, if you look at our big wars that we've been in, that's what we have fought for.
But our enemies call that imperialism.
Okay, I'm not saying what our enemies
Yeah.
are saying. I'm saying that's where we were coming from in our foreign policy, in our military policy. But now, certainly in the Obama administration, we seem to have flipped that. And now we have these people in the White House, these people in the State Department, the NSA, representing us at the UN, who do not want to use the moral authority that the United States had for the greater good of the world. And that's why we have this attitude coming from the administration that we should not meddle in the affairs of these foreign countries that want to institute Sharia law against their citizens, because everything is morally relativistic.
Well, if you say, and you're correct, that we don't want to meddle in the affairs of other countries, why are we meddling into the affairs of Israel? We are telling Israel what to do. Netanyahu is being read the riot act by Barack Obama. So we do meddle
Right.
when it comes to the ideology of the leftists who control this country. The leftists who control our country, you know, we see through what's happening now, that we downplay the morality of the United States. We are the bad people. Barack Obama in
Right.
2009
Right.
went on an apology tour.
Right.
We are weakening our country and supporting the idolatrous of the Muslims, the radical
Right.
Islamists,
Right.
who see an opportunity now to encroach on the United States because we are weak.
Right. Right.
So,
Ryan, what do you think about that? I mean, you're a lot younger than Alan.
what?
But,
What?
no, he's the baby of the group.
I weigh.
But he is an excellent national security analyst.
Absolutely.
And certainly,
I look up to
from
you.
all of your interviews and all of your research that you've done over the years, you have to see this. Why is the United States stepping away from its role of being a force of good in the world? And really, we just seem to be supporting the bad guys everywhere. And is that why it's so easy for somebody like Eli Biari to be advising the president? Because really, that's where they're coming from philosophically. They don't like the United States. They don't think the United States is a force for good in the world. And neither does he, apparently.
I think fundamentally, the core of the issue isn't just about Obama or about politics. It's about the beliefs of a generation, which is what you touched upon earlier, which is moral and cultural relativism. The idea that our civilization and our ideas are not superior, and therefore we have no moral authority over countries that institute Sharia law if the ruling government or the majority of the population votes it into power. I think that that's at the core of why we misunderstand the Muslim Brotherhood, because if you can't see evil and you
Right.
can't see black and white, and all cultures are the same and all morals are essentially the same, even if they're different, we need to accept them, then you would look over at something like the Muslim Brotherhood and say, that's their deal and we need to respect it.
Isn't that the role right now of our educational system? We say that
Yes.
everyone is equal. The bad guys are really not the bad guys. It's the perspective on how you look at the bad guys. A terrorist could be a revolutionary, could be a patriot. But our educational system, and we're going to get into that a little bit later,
Yeah, we'll talk about that later.
glorifies these people who are radicals because they have new ideas. These are the new ideas that have to be promulgated.
What do you think?
Right, I experienced that in my own education, not in the American Military University where I went, but in growing up, even at a young age. I remember these questions of cultural and moral relativism, even though I didn't know that's what it was really being taught in the classroom from a young age. And there were times where I was ashamed of my country because we would focus so much on the sins of America, particularly slavery, while ignoring what's going on in the rest of the world. That I remember coming out of the classroom in 4th, 5th, 6th grade and feeling ashamed to be an American.
Oh, that's awful.
Okay, we can get into the core curriculum a little bit later
yeah.
about how America is just as good as any other country in the rest of the world.
No, that's not
No,
it.
we're better.
No. Do you
that's
know
what
Called American exceptionalism.
exceptionalism? But yeah,
Even if Putin doesn't agree with it.
yeah, Nobel Prize coming his way, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Ryan, let me ask you this. It seems like if I like that we talk about moral relativism and cultural relativity, but it seems we've gone past that, and really we're not treating all people or all cultures or all philosophies equal anymore. They don't have equal standing in this country right now, from the media, from the political elites, from academia. Muslims are supreme over
Infidels.
infidels.
Very true, very true.
Yeah. Islamic law has more acceptance in this country than Judeo-Christian values do. Do you agree with that or not? We can't go to war to protect ourselves, but the president is willing to commit the military to protect Muslims from killing each other.
I wouldn't go so far as to say that Islamic holidays are accepted more than Judeo-Christian holidays.
No,
but
I
would
didn't say
that
holidays.
Americans-
No,
I'm sorry?
No, I didn't say holidays. I'm saying if you look at what's happening in textbooks, in schools, in colleges, huge amounts of time and space devoted to the glories of Islam and Islamic
Right, okay.
culture, and at the same time, Judeo-Christian culture in this country is just slammed everywhere you look, in the media, in art, in academia, by the administration, by the political elites. But at the same time, Islam is glorified and almost worshipped and has to be kowtowed to.
I remember in college classrooms and even in high school classrooms where there was absolutely no critical examination of Islam or Sharia law, but tons of bashing of Western civilization and just the stuff that we're talking about. But I think that there's two things that have happened. First, I think that a lot of the American people have confused the belief that everyone is equal with the idea that all philosophies are equal. You can
Right.
believe that each person is fundamentally equal, but the philosophies in which they live by and try to impose upon others,
Right.
that's not equal. And secondly, there's a book called Underdogma that's really exceptional in how it talks about this phenomena that's happened in the United States, where we love the underdog. We believe, and we do this for good reason, we love to stand up for what looks to be the oppressed minority. And so that's why claims of Islamophobia and anti-Muslim bigotry is so popular and powerful in our culture.
Did you get a sense when you were doing this interview, and this took place over several months, did you get the sense from Mohammed El Iviari that he was kind of using that, and that is that part of his cachet, his aura, a source of influence for him?
Oh, without a doubt. He characterizes himself as the conservative Republican that has arrived to deliver tolerance to the Republican Party and save it from its own destruction.
Well, am I right that there's an edict from the President of the United States to wipe out all mention of Islamic fundamentalism in the training of our troops and in the training of our counter-espionage agents all over the world, that they're not supposed to learn about Islam or radical Islam, and that's absolutely obliterated from the textbooks, the learning textbooks?
Well, it's actually worse than that.
Whoa, I didn't know that.
El Iviari, in his capacity as a senior advisor at the Department of Homeland Security, he is an expert on what they call countering violent extremism. Because you can't say radical Islam, Islamist, or anything else like that.
Right.
So these revised guidelines came out of the Department of Homeland Security on countering violent extremism, El Iviari's field. And what they basically said was you cannot teach counterterrorism personnel about the U.S. Muslim Brotherhood, that it even exists, about Sharia law, efforts to advance the Sharia agenda using the democratic processes. If you read the guidelines, it's amazing in how they go point by point, identifying each of the nonviolent tactics that the Muslim Brotherhood uses in the United States and says that cannot be taught because it's not violent and we have to have a strict focus just on the bomb going off.
Oh my goodness.
Well,
So this man really does have a lot of dangerous influence, not just the ear of some people who are going to be coming and going out of the White House, because administrations do change. But when you're talking about educating thousands of people in our military, that's something that doesn't get changed overnight. That goes from generation to generation in the military. That's permanent and long lasting, and that becomes the standard and the example for other agencies to use.
Right, it's a potentially permanent impact. It's not something that you can just vote out and replace.
Exactly.
It's an entire generation of ignorance that is going to be virtually impossible to reverse unless something dramatic happens. And I've got another example of his influence.
Okay.
In the interview, he strongly insinuated that he was behind stopping possible prosecutions of groups like CARE, ISNA, other groups linked to the Muslim Brotherhood, because he says, and this really shocked me, he said they helped, quote, safeguard the Muslim nonprofits that were targeted around the time of the Holy Land Foundation trial. He says that the page has to be turned, and that the Holy Land Foundation 2.0, the next round of terror prosecutions, is, quote, no longer going to happen.
Oh, so we're done with that, right?
That's what he's saying, but nobody said no longer going to happen. It's an admission that at one point these organizations were targeted, and he helped, in his own words, safeguard them. And he's now a Department of Homeland Security advisor. It's amazing.
So shouldn't Eric Holder be talking to you now about what you found out in this interview? Shouldn't he be reading your interview?
He can't answer the phone during the shutdown. But Ryan, first of all, where can people go to read your full interview and your 15 points that you took from the interview?
They can go to clarionproject.org, and there is where the 15 points are. And in that article, you can, if you want to read the entire 37-page extravaganza, you can do so there.
Okay, so you can click on the link from there, right?
That's right.
Okay. Let me ask you this. For the people who are watching and listening today, and they're hearing about this for the first time, it may be shocking to them to know. Because people who watch and listen to this show, they pretty much know who the Muslim Brotherhood is, and they know it's not the good guys.
It shouldn't be shocking. It should be an awakening to action.
Well, that's why I want to ask Ryan. What can people do about it?
Well, the first thing that you have to do is get networked. You have to get connected. It's not just enough to educate yourself. You have to be part of the information sharing network. And the way you do that is you sign up for newsletters like the United West, or you sign up for the Clarion Project's biweekly newsletter so that coordination can begin. You first have to have those links before coordination can begin. And then from then on, when there are specific points of activism that we can do, then we can all do it together so that it makes an impact. So, for example, you could take the 15-point article that I wrote and send it to your local congressman, because that puts it in a very short, succinct, and powerful way so that they don't have to go through 37 pages.
Right.
Like send it to Ted Deutsch.
Right.
Send it to anyone and everyone.
Send it to everybody. Alan is a prolific emailer, and hundreds and hundreds of people on his list. I met Alan years ago when I first came to Florida. And like the first day, and got on his email list and just got networked with everybody in South Florida in this cause through this man right here. So that's a really good idea. That's a good place to start.
Absolutely.
Not enough just to educate yourself and be disgusted. You have to actually do something about it, everybody.
Educate, and act.
Okay. Speaking of education, Ryan, because I really appreciate that you could take so much time with us, but one thing I did want to leave with you, if I could just segue into another subject, because we are fans of the work that Clarion does, and one of the projects that I like is a little film about what's happening on college campuses in this country. And we're talking about influence operations of the Muslim Brotherhood. They're very big on the college campuses in this country. We have a big problem with it here in Florida on our college campuses, particularly at FAU near our studio in Boca Raton. And we like a film that deals with the issue of campus intifada. And are we going to show that? No, we're not going to show that. We'll show that after Ryan goes. So I just want to let you know, crossing the line, there it is. The Intifada comes to campus. We're going to be showing that, and a very interesting interview that our producer Damon was able to get over at FAU the other day. He gave us the Muslim Brotherhood geography version of Israel and Palestine. Ryan, before you go, let me ask you one more thing. What's going to happen with this report after the shutdown, do you think?
We're going to have to hope that after the shutdown is over, that there'll be a lull in the news cycle that we can take advantage of, and that's when we can really push it. Because, like I said, right now, the media just focuses on one scandal and just goes over it and over it and over it and over it. and this is what they're focused on.
Could a congressman, a senator, or a congressman get your report, reproduce it, and hand it out to his colleagues in Congress so that they should be educated? One assumes that our Congress people know what's going on. Sadly, they don't.
No, they don't.
Or that's what has to happen. There has to be a high-profile individual, a congressman that has nationwide name recognition, or someone has to say something who just by the talking gets headlines.
But Peter King did that, remember, with his Islamophobia thing? He was vilified by the Democrats because he tried to expose radical Islam.
Well, look
in a
at
House hearing.
Michelle Bachmann tried to highlight the Muslim Brotherhood in the administration, and her own party members tried to take her down. So we want to follow through on this, is what I'm saying. So if you could keep in touch with us, and there's going to be a big rollout, then please let us know. And we at the United West and TrentoVision would love to help you get the word out.
Excellent, thank you.
All right, thank you. Ryan
Thanks,
Mauro.
Ryan.
Nice meeting you,
very much.
Ryan.
Ryan Mauro
having me.
with the Clarion Project. Yay, Ryan. So smart. So smart.
Young and smart, that's
young
what we
and
need.
smart, yeah.
We need that. We need someone like that to go to college campuses and speak to people. You know what, I was thinking as he was talking,
Yeah.
this Elabiari guy and the other Muslims who are employed in our Homeland Security and other defense agencies, they have open house to colleges, to go to the colleges and speak to the kids and to insinuate to them that the Muslim Brotherhood is basically a friendly group.
Well, that's what Ryan was saying. He was saying it's like a social club. It's like hanging out with your Facebook buddies.
When I talk to Jewish groups, I talk about the Muslim Brotherhood, and I always say, listen, you may think the Muslim Brotherhood is a great organization. It's like the Brotherhood of Electrical Workers Union or the Brotherhood in temples. They don't know what the Muslim Brotherhood stands for. Brotherhood is such a warm, encompassing word.
Right.
We love it,
right.
you know. Instead, they slit the throats not of you, but of your grandchildren and your children. So
All right.
that's reality.
All right. Well, I wanted to get through, gosh, look at the time already. 43 minutes after the hour. Do we have time to show a couple of campus clips?
Yeah, we could go to that FAU first while I try and bring this one
We
up.
want to go to FAU?
Yeah,
Okay.
we go ahead.
Could you
Yeah,
explain?
Because
Could you,
I know Alan.
okay, could
I
you
know Alan is
could you
very,
explain
very
it?
active
Could you
in
explain
both
it first?
Yeah.
Okay, let me give you an explanation. Florida Atlantic University is a campus right here within the heart of Boca Raton, Florida. Boca Raton, Florida is probably the largest concentration of Jews in the country per square mile. And we have this university, and an insidious group of students, I don't even know if they're students, they're just there to activism, is called the Students for Justice in Palestine. They're an outgrowth of the Muslim Brotherhood, the Muslim Students Association, and they've picked out Florida Atlantic University as a guinea pig project. And 2 years ago, they went around and they put posters on doors, eviction notices of posters on doors, saying that they're duplicating what the Israelis are doing to the poor Palestinians.
Oh, wait a minute. They took eviction notices and put them on the doors in the college dorms.
In the dormitory.
In the dormitories at FAU.
Yeah, you would think that the administration would react to this. Instead, the administration approved of those notices. They read them, and they sent a Florida Atlantic University administrator to accompany them through the halls to give them a note of credibility. And they put these notices on the walls. No reaction whatsoever from the Jewish community, no reaction whatsoever from the press. They got away with it, and they said, you know what?
Did they target Jewish students, or did they just blanket everybody?
Students in general. And since this was a test case, they looked around and no one was reacting. They say, hey, listen, this is great.
Oh, we got a free ride
This
over
is great.
here, yeah.
Let's do it again. So earlier this year, they went on campus and they put plastic body bags, supposedly containing Palestinian babies killed by Israel, splashed them with ketchup, and put it around the campus. Again, no reaction from the Jewish community. Our defenders, who get millions of dollars from donations, kept quiet. And
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's just backstep 1 second and just explain this real quick. When you say gets millions of dollars of our money, you're talking about people who donate.
Jewish.
For
The
the most
Federation.
part, yeah, for the most part, people who donate, like to the different Jewish
Hillel.
federations or Campus Hillels or something like that.
Anti-Defamation League.
Anti-Defamation League.
American Jewish Committee.
American Jewish Community. Groups that set themselves up as the spokespeople
And the rabbis. And the rabbis in the
rabbis,
community.
spokespeople for the Jewish people and the Jewish community.
Defenders of the Jewish people.
Defenders of the Jewish people in the United States. So they're mum about this.
Not only are they mum, but when I and a couple of other people tried to educate the people to this, we were castigated, we were vilified.
You were rocking the boat?
I personally was thrown out of the Jewish Community Relations Council, of which I was a member on the board for 20 years, because I was
And this is volunteer, right?
a volunteer without pay.
Yeah.
I know, yeah. And I opened my mouth, and this was too much for the Federation.
Why?
And they threw me out. Why?
Why?
Because they were playing ball with the university. You know, they like to kiss one another on the
But
cheek.
why is it in the interest of these Jewish organizations who are supposed to be there to support the members of the Jewish community to side with groups or institutions
To look good.
that are not supportive
To
of
look
the Jewish
good, to
community?
be social.
When I used to donate to the Jewish Federation, not in this county, but in another county, and for some reason, even though they were taking in millions of dollars, all of a sudden they didn't have money for chaplain services to minister to people who were in the hospitals.
Well, Tikkun Olam.
Okay.
Tikkun
So
Olam.
there's no money for actual services to the Jewish community, but there was plenty of money to do interfaith
Charitable.
outreach and all this kind of...
Without reciprocity.
No, there's
Without
no reciprocity.
Without
Okay,
reciprocity.
but let's bring it back to FAU,
Okay.
and so we have eviction notices, we have dead bodies.
And this week,
We had those ladies at FAU earlier this year who were supporting the Gaza flotillas.
Greta Berlin.
Yeah. And so a lot of
and Tom Trento was kicked out.
Tom Trento was kicked out, but if you're anti-Zionist, if you're anti-Israel,
You're
and
good.
let's face it, anti-Zionist, anti-Israel, that's anti-Semitism. Let's just
you
say
are
that
good.
right
You
off
are
the bat.
good.
You're not
That's
talking
not
about.
what you're here on the
You're
campuses,
not
and that is
talking about
exactly
politics.
that is exactly what they are trying to brainwash, and that it's okay to want to wipe the Jewish people out of Israel,
Right.
but it doesn't mean that you're anti-Semitic.
You proved it
Right.
on your video.
Right,
You proved it
right.
on your video.
Are we going to show that?
Yes,
Can we?
ready to roll.
Let's show that geography lesson and then go from there. Palestine will be free. End the occupation. No Americans allowed. Occupy.
A minute ago, you
Africa.
just said that there should be no Israel left.
No, I think they should give it back to the Palestinians.
What part? You said that this part right here should be given to the Palestinians. You said that all of these lands should be given back to the Palestinians.
Yeah.
And then I asked you, well, what would be left of Israel? And you said, well, there's no reason for there to be anything left of Israel.
This was Palestine before it became Israel.
And here's the history. It's
Yeah.
great.
And here's
Yeah.
the history.
This was Palestine before
Where's the
Israel.
history?
Palestine, and then Israel starts, and now it's all Israel. And this little tiny bit here is Palestine.
It's like how the Native Americans out of all this land that we live on right now.
Uh-huh. So what should be left of Israel? Point on the map what should be left of Israel.
Let's see. Well, no, in my opinion, this is all Palestine.
Okay,
This is all
so it's all Palestine. Should
But
there
the
be an
Israelis-
Israel?
The Israelis live on Palestinian land.
Okay, the Israeli lives on Palestine. A fairness point of view would mean that there's no Israel. Is that what you're saying?
Well, no, I mean, they don't have to occupy someone else's land.
Keep building settlements.
So what part is their land?
Who?
Israel's.
This is Palestine. Here,
The whole
Let
thing.
me say it again. This is Palestine.
So there is no
Spell it out
Israel.
for you. Palestine.
Were there
Palestine, you
Israelis,
idiot.
were there Jewish people in this land before there were, quote, Palestinians? Were there Jewish people on those lands
Listen to this.
I don't know. What's the history?
I'm asking you. Do you not believe that Jerusalem is part of Israel?
Listen, because I'm looking at it from a fairness point
A fairness
of view.
point of view.
Yeah.
So point on the map what should be left of Israel.
I can't. The map's too small.
The map's too small, so Israel should be big.
No, Israel. No, wait. This isn't a map of Israel, though. This is a map of Palestine.
That's a map. So there is no Israel.
Not in my opinion, no.
That is, how many hits has that video had?
Not that many. It has like 1,400 hits.
That's it.
Can I make a suggestion to you?
Yeah.
I think you should make discs of this, DVDs, and send one out to every single synagogue in Palm Beach County with a request to have it shown at a sisterhood meeting or a brotherhood meeting. I hate to use the term brotherhood. To educate the people, because here is an imbecile. This kid is an imbecile. I don't know what school he goes to, if he goes to FAU. He is a know-nothing. He might even be Jewish. We don't even know if he's Jewish.
I'll tell you, last year when I was documenting some of the activities of this organization, there were several self-hating Jews that were hanging out with this SJP. And, it is amazing the brainwashing. What they've done is there's absolutely... It seems that if you put something in black and white or green and white and call it something, it instantly becomes a fact, because the educational system is so pathetic that if you call something like that woman that in the video where she said, "See, the history's right here. It was all that." If you draw it, it must be true. That's the equivalent of me drawing my picture with the crayon and handing it to the woman at Publix and calling it ID for beer.
This is
That's really
this
good.
is the involvement. This is the involvement of groups like J Street,
Right.
Americans for Peace Now,
Yeah.
and Rabbis for Human
Jewish
Rights.
Voices for Peace.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Jewish Voices. Let me tell you something.
What about the Hillel?
Hillel. Okay,
Tell us
Hillel-
about Hillel
okay.
on the FAU campus.
The two earlier events that we talked about
Yeah.
with the door posters and the
And
body
the
bags.
babies, yeah.
Hillel was run by a guy by the name of Scott Brockman. He was a paid Hillel supervisor, and he claimed at a JCRC board meeting, which I was in attendance, that he is hunky-dory with the Palestinians on campus. Now, Scott Brockman was forced to resign because of his poor performance. He is now working as the area coordinator for J Street.
J Street is what?
J Street is a radical Jewish-sponsored Jewish organization that supports every single Palestinian demand. It's funded by George Soros. So Scott Brockman, we must assume that while he was working as Hillel to help pro-Israel activities, he was basically an undercover agent for J Street, which undercut these pro-Israel activities. And now that he's out of a job with Hillel, which he can no longer endanger the Jewish community in Hillel, he is now working for J Street, which is an outspoken supporter of Palestinians.
Let me tell you, that Scott character, okay?
Yeah.
Dealing with him last year, the guy was more concerned with protecting the SJP and the alternative view, okay? He was more concerned with protecting their hate than he was with imbibing the Jewish students with nonsense, anti-Israeli nonsense. He's more concerned with the Palestinian students than the Jewish students as the head of Hillel.
Okay, right now, they have appointed two other people to run Hillel. We don't know their backgrounds. We don't know their ideology. It must be assumed that they have the same interests as Scott Brockman.
I will not make that wild. I will have some hope and faith. In fact, I'll make a point of going over there to meet them in the next week or two.
Okay. Let me give you an example. You have Congressman Robert Wexler.
Well, what are they doing now this week? Because we just
It's over
saw
now. I think yesterday was the last day.
Yesterday
They had a
was the
graveyard
last
on
day,
Monday.
Friday is their holiday.
While the SJP puts up these anti-Semitic posters in the public speech area and a fake graveyard of supposed Israeli atrocities against the Palestinians, where's the campus Hillel And where's the ADL in South Florida
Should I tell you?
to speak for these
Should
students?
I tell you? The Jewish Federation, the local Jewish Federation, which basically runs Hillel, says, and I have it in writing, we must be quiet because if we exacerbate the situation, we will just publicize these events. Rather than publicize these events, we'll keep it quiet. We won't say anything about it, and nobody will know about it.
What does that sound like to you?
That sounds
What
like
is that reminiscent
1938.
of?
That sounds like
Yeah.
1938 Jews who said, "Don't bother President Roosevelt."
Don't rock the boat.
We're in deep
because
doo.
then Hitler's really going to come after
We
us.
are in deep doo. We have no leadership. The Federation supports FAU. The administration said we must permit them to do this because it's their First Amendment rights. I agree with that. But they had every right to condemn those students for their actions, and they didn't condemn the message of those students. So what that says to the students at FAU is, I keep my mouth shut, I want good grades, I'll not get into trouble, I'll just get my 4 years in and I'll walk away.
Go along to play
Those
along.
are the Jewish students.
Those are the Jewish students. I remember speaking to some of them when we went to the campus for their last Israel apartheid festivities, and they were more concerned. They don't even know what free speech is. Okay, because if you ask them if they support free speech, they'll say absolutely, but you don't have a right to video what these people are saying.
On campus.
Yeah.
So there is no First Amendment rights on campus.
Of course, but they think in their heads. That's how twisted
Okay.
these kids are.
The solution for this is to have Jewish kids and Christian kids go into the university understanding that they're going to be confronted by these radical Islamist students, and they should have information to counter them. They don't have information. They don't know. A kid walking by will listen to this kid who says, this is all Palestine, and he'll agree.
Right. Well, you know how I was talking about this with somebody just last week, and I was saying, in the synagogues, a program that I think the synagogues should have is, you know how for like a year before there's a bar mitzvah or a bat mitzvah, the kids have all this religious instruction, language instruction, training, history, everything about Judaism for a whole year before they have a bar or bat mitzvah. Why don't we design a program to use through the synagogues?
Look at this sign.
Okay, look at that. Zionism is a demographic threat. Palestine will be free.
That's not hate speech.
That's not hate speech.
But the administration
But
says...
why don't we, why as Jewish parents, grandparents, why are we not taking the year before these kids go to school and educating them about what really is going to happen in the world, what is the climate on the campuses now?
Because we don't have any leadership. When you don't have leadership in the temples, we have two rabbis in this community, in the Boca Raton community, two rabbis send notices out to their congregants. Go to the Islamic Center of Boca Raton and learn about Islam. It is a religion just like Judaism and Christianity. Go to that mosque. And the mosque in Boca Raton is a mosque where the imam, their original imam, Abraham Dramali, was deported 2 years ago by the FBI, and two of their founding members are in jail for terrorism. So these Jewish leaders are sending their Jewish sheep to go into the mosque.
For the slaughter.
To be taqiyed, to be lied to.
Yeah.
And then they'll walk out saying, the Muslims are the greatest people in the world. They gave us coffee and cake.
And I can't thank you enough for
I'll
being
be tuned
here.
in. Listen, it's my honor to be here. I'm honored to be here among you great people.
All right.
Where's the food?
Yeah, the food is coming. Alan Bergstein and CJ here saying thank you very much for watching. And watch us and listen to us tomorrow on WNN 1470 AM. Thank you, everybody.